For decades, Marie Osmond appeared to have the life millions dreamed about. Fame, success, a loving family, and a career that survived generations. But behind the bright smile and unforgettable performances was a private battle filled with painful losses, emotional struggles, and moments when the woman everyone admired had to fight just to keep moving forward. At 66, the story of Marie Osmond is not simply about celebrity success. It is about the hidden chapters, the sacrifices, and the heartbreaking truths that many fans never saw coming. For millions of people around the world, the name Marie Osmond instantly brings back images of sparkling costumes, unforgettable performances, and a young girl with a smile that seemed impossible to break. She was the picture of wholesome entertainment, a talented performer who appeared to have everything under control. But behind that carefully crafted image was a young woman carrying expectations far heavier than most people ever realized. Marie Osmond was introduced to the world as part of one of America's most famous entertainment families. The Osmonds were more than just performers. They were a cultural phenomenon. Their music, television appearances, and family-friendly image made them beloved by audiences everywhere. Growing up surrounded by talented siblings, Marie was introduced to the entertainment world at an age when most children were still discovering who they were. But fame arrived before she had the chance to truly understand what it meant. Born into the legendary Osmond family, Marie was surrounded by music from the beginning. Her brothers had already found success, and when she stepped onto the stage, audiences immediately noticed something special about her. She was young, charismatic, and had a natural ability to connect with people. In 1973, at just 13 years old, she released her first major hit, Paper Roses, a song that quickly turned her into a teenage sensation. Almost overnight, Marie went from being a regular child growing up in a famous family to becoming a star recognized across the country. But the world often sees the reward of fame without understanding the pressure behind it. While fans saw the confident young performer singing under bright lights, Marie was also trying to navigate the complicated reality of growing up in front of millions of strangers. Every appearance, every interview, and every performance became part of a public image she had to maintain. There was little room for mistakes, insecurity, or simply being a normal teenager. The expectations were enormous. Marie wasn't just expected to succeed. She was expected to represent something. Her family's reputation was built around clean entertainment, strong values, and a picture-perfect image. As one of the few female faces of the Osmond brand, she carried a unique responsibility. The audience didn't just want to hear her sing. They wanted her to represent innocence, positivity, and perfection. And perfection is an impossible standard for anyone, especially someone still growing up. Behind the scenes, Marie was learning a difficult lesson that many child stars discover too late. The world can fall in love with an image while forgetting there is a real person underneath it. The young woman fans admired was dealing with questions about identity, confidence, and the pressure to constantly prove herself. She was surrounded by success, but success came with a price. The more people celebrated the version of Marie they saw on television, the harder it became to show the parts of herself that weren't always happy or certain. As the years passed, Marie continued building her career. She expanded beyond music, appearing on television and becoming known for her ability to entertain audiences in multiple ways. Her partnership with her brother Donny became one of the most memorable sibling acts in entertainment history, leading to their popular variety show that captured the hearts of viewers. To the public, Marie and Donny represented a dream, talented siblings, family success, and a level of fame many performers only imagine. But behind the curtain, Marie's journey was much more complicated. The entertainment industry can be unforgiving, especially for young women who are constantly judged by their appearance, personality, and ability to stay relevant. Marie experienced the pressure of maintaining her career while also trying to understand herself beyond the image created for her. She wasn't just fighting to stay famous. She was fighting to discover who Marie Osmond really was when the cameras stopped rolling. And that struggle would follow her into adulthood. As the years moved forward, the little girl who once captured America's attention had to face challenges that fame could not protect her from. The applause, the awards, and the success were real, But so were the private battles happening far away from the stage. Because while the world believed Marie Osmond had everything, her journey was about to reveal a painful truth. Sometimes the people who appear the strongest are carrying the heaviest burdens, and the challenges waiting ahead would test her in ways no performance ever could. When people look back at Marie Osmond's early career, it is easy to remember the success. They remember the teenage girl with the powerful voice, the sold-out performances, and the image of a young star who seemed destined for a lifetime of happiness. But what many people didn't see was the emotional weight that came with becoming famous before she had the chance to fully understand herself. Marie Osmond was living a life that millions of young performers dream about, but dreams can become complicated when they arrive too early. While most teenagers were discovering their personalities, making mistakes, and figuring out who they wanted to become, Marie was already being judged by audiences across the world. Her choices were no longer just personal decisions. They were viewed through the lens of fame. Every outfit, every interview, every appearance became something people analyzed. And for someone so young, that kind of attention could create a tremendous amount of pressure. The entertainment industry often rewards confidence, but behind the scenes, many young stars struggle with the expectation that they must always appear happy and successful. Marie's public image was built around positivity and family values, which meant there was little space for vulnerability. She had to maintain the version of herself that audiences had grown attached to. But real life does not always follow a perfect script. As Marie entered adulthood, she began experiencing the difficult transition that many child stars face, the challenge of becoming a person outside of the identity created by the public. The world knew her as the talented Osmond sister, the smiling performer, and the young woman who represented a certain kind of innocence. But who was Marie when she wasn't performing? That question became increasingly important as she grew older. Like many people who become famous at a young age, Marie had to learn how to separate her personal identity from her professional image. The applause could tell her that millions of people loved her performances, but it could not answer deeper questions about happiness, confidence, and fulfillment. Behind the scenes, she faced emotional struggles that she later became open about. The pressure of maintaining an ideal image, combined with personal insecurities and the demands of a demanding career, created moments where she had to confront challenges that fame could not solve. Success had given her opportunities, but it had also created expectations. There was always another performance, another appearance, another reason to stay strong. And sometimes the hardest battles are the ones nobody sees. Marie continued working and evolving as an entertainer. She refused to let herself become trapped by one version of her career. Instead of staying only within the world of music, she explored television, acting, and other creative opportunities. Her ability to adapt helped her remain relevant through changing eras of entertainment. But behind every comeback and every professional achievement was a person dealing with the realities of life. The public often assumes that celebrities have access to everything they need to overcome difficulties. They imagine that money, fame, and success should make problems easier. But emotional pain does not disappear because someone is famous. In many ways, being famous can make personal struggles even more complicated. Millions of people believe they know you, but very few actually know your private story. Marie experienced this contrast throughout her life. Fans saw the entertainer who could walk onto a stage and make people smile. They saw someone who appeared confident and fearless. But privately, she was learning that strength does not mean never struggling. Strength means continuing even when the struggle is real. Over time, Marie became more willing to talk about difficult experiences and the lessons she learned along the way. Her openness allowed fans to see a different side of her, not just the performer, but the person behind the performances. And that honesty changed the way many people viewed her. She was no longer simply the young star from the Osmond family. She was a woman who had experienced uncertainty, disappointment, and moments of deep reflection. But as Marie moved beyond the pressures of childhood fame, an even more personal chapter of her story began to unfold. Because the greatest challenges in her life would not come from the stage, the cameras, or the demands of Hollywood. They would come from the places where she expected to find happiness, love, and security. and the emotional battles that followed would reveal a side of Marie Osmond that the world had rarely seen before. For much of her career, Marie Osmond was known as the woman who could make people smile. She was the performer who walked onto a stage and brought energy to every room. But when the cameras turned off and the applause faded away, Marie faced a completely different world, one filled with personal choices, emotional challenges, and moments that tested her strength in ways fame never could. Because behind every celebrity story is a human story. And Marie's journey was shaped not only by her career, but by the relationships and experiences that changed her forever. As Marie entered adulthood, she searched for something beyond the spotlight. Like anyone else, she wanted love, stability, and a place where she could feel accepted for who she was rather than what she represented to millions of fans. Her first marriage came at a young age, during a period when she was still trying to balance the demands of fame with the desire for a normal personal life. Like many relationships, it came with hopes and dreams, but it also brought challenges. The pressure of public attention can create unique difficulties, and Marie found herself navigating personal struggles while the world continued watching her every move. But instead of allowing those challenges to define her, Marie continued moving forward. One of the most important parts of her life became her role as a mother. Away from the stage, away from the television cameras, and away from the expectations of being a celebrity, Marie found a different kind of purpose through her children. Motherhood became one of the greatest sources of meaning in her life. Yet even this part of her journey came with moments of heartbreak. Being a parent means experiencing both incredible joy and unimaginable fear. Marie openly shared that her family faced difficult times, including struggles that challenged her emotionally and forced her to confront painful realities. The strength she showed publicly often came from private moments of uncertainty that very few people knew about. For someone who spent decades entertaining others, becoming vulnerable about personal pain was not always easy. But Marie began to understand that sharing struggles could also help others. Her willingness to speak honestly about difficult experiences became one of the reasons many fans connected with her on a deeper level. She was no longer just the famous performer they had watched for years. She became someone who understood that behind every smile, there can be hidden battles. One of the most painful experiences Marie faced involved the loss of her son, Michael, who died in 2010 at the age of 18. The tragedy deeply affected Marie and became one of the most heartbreaking moments of her life. Losing a child is a pain that changes a person forever. For Marie, the grief was something she had to carry while continuing to be a public figure. Millions of people knew her name, but only those closest to her could truly understand the depth of that loss. The world saw her continue appearing publicly, continuing her work, and continuing to encourage others. But behind that strength was a mother processing a devastating heartbreak. And this moment revealed something important about Marie Osmond. Her strength was not because she never experienced pain. Her strength came from the fact that she experienced pain and still found a way to continue. Over the years, Marie faced other personal challenges as well, including changes in relationships, difficult decisions, and moments where she had to rebuild parts of her life. Each chapter brought new lessons about forgiveness, resilience, and accepting that life does not always follow the path people imagine. But perhaps the biggest contradiction in Marie's story was this. The woman who spent decades making millions of people feel better was also someone who had experienced some of the deepest emotional struggles herself. And that contrast made her journey even more powerful. Because when fans looked at Marie Osmond, they often saw success. They saw the songs. They saw the television appearances. They saw the famous smile. But they did not always see the moments when she had to find the strength to smile through the pain. And after years of personal battles, Marie would face another chapter that would challenge her in an entirely different way. One involving the people closest to her and a family struggle that would leave a lasting mark on her life. Because sometimes the hardest battles are not the ones fought in front of millions. They are the ones fought quietly at home, where nobody else can see. For years, Marie Osmond had built a reputation as someone who could overcome almost anything. She had survived the pressures of childhood fame, rebuilt her career multiple times, and continued performing even during moments when life became painfully difficult. But nothing prepared her for the emotional challenges that came from watching the people she loved face their own battles. Because for Marie, family was never just a part of her story. Family was the center of it. Away from the stage, away from the bright lights, and away from the public image of the successful entertainer, Marie's greatest role was being a mother. Her children became the reason she pushed forward through difficult moments and the source of some of her greatest happiness. But motherhood also exposed her to a different kind of vulnerability. A parent can spend years protecting their children, but there are moments when even the strongest person realizes they cannot control everything. Marie experienced this painful reality when her family faced struggles that challenged her emotionally and spiritually. The most devastating moment came with the loss of her son, Michael. Marie had spoken about the impact of his death and the emotional journey that followed. Losing a child created a pain unlike anything she had experienced before. The grief was not something that simply disappeared with time. Instead, it became something she had to learn to carry while continuing to live her life. For someone who had always been known for bringing happiness to others, experiencing such profound sadness created a painful contrast. The world expected Marie to remain strong. But strength does not mean someone does not break. It means finding a reason to keep going after something has broken you. Marie later revealed that one of the ways she survived her darkest moments was by focusing on love, faith, and the memories she shared with those she lost. Rather than allowing tragedy to erase the joy from her life, she worked to honor the people who shaped her. But the challenges surrounding her family did not end there. Like many families, the Osmonds experienced the complicated realities of life, personal struggles, changing relationships, and moments where difficult conversations became necessary. Being part of a famous family meant those challenges often existed under public attention. Every decision could become a topic of discussion. Every personal moment could become something outsiders judged. And that added another layer of difficulty. Marie had spent decades learning how to handle public pressure, but family struggles are different. When someone's career faces criticism, they can step away from the spotlight. When someone you love is hurting, there is no easy way to walk away. Those experiences changed Marie's perspective. She became more open about the importance of mental health, emotional honesty, and supporting people through difficult seasons of life. Instead of pretending that everything was perfect, she began using her platform to remind others that pain is something everyone experiences, even people who seem to have it all. This was a major shift in how audiences viewed her. For decades, Marie Osmond had represented the idea of the perfect entertainer. But through her struggles, fans began seeing something much more relatable. They saw a mother. They saw a person. They saw someone who had experienced loss and uncertainty, but refused to let those moments become the end of her story. Her journey also changed the way she approached success. The things that once seemed most important, fame, recognition, and public approval, became less meaningful compared to the things that truly mattered. At 66 years old, Marie's greatest achievements were no longer measured only by records sold or performances completed. They were measured by the lives she touched, the lessons she shared, and the strength she found after unimaginable pain. But even after surviving some of the hardest moments of her life, Marie still had another challenge ahead. Because rebuilding yourself after heartbreak is one thing. Learning who you are when the world no longer expects you to be the person you were before is something completely different. And as Marie entered a new stage of her life, she faced a question that many people struggle with after decades of defining themselves through their work. Who are you when the spotlight begins to fade? The answer would reveal a side of Marie Osmond that many fans had never truly understood. After decades in the entertainment industry, Marie Osmond reached a point where she had to confront a question that many lifelong performers eventually face. What happens when your identity is no longer defined only by the stage? For most of her life, Marie had been known by millions of people as a singer, entertainer, television personality, and member of one of America's most famous families. Her name carried decades of memories, from childhood performances to unforgettable television moments. But behind that successful career was a woman who had experienced enough personal challenges to completely change the way she viewed life. Marie Osmond had spent years proving she was strong. Now, she had to discover what strength truly meant. Throughout her career, Marie refused to remain stuck in one place. She constantly reinvented herself, moving between music, television, theater, and other creative projects. At a time when many performers struggle to remain relevant, she continued finding ways to connect with audiences across different generations. But professional success was only one part of her transformation. The bigger change happened internally. After experiencing heartbreak, loss, and difficult personal moments, Marie began looking at life differently. The things that once seemed essential, public approval, constant success, and maintaining a flawless image, became less important compared to personal peace and emotional well-being. She had spent years trying to live up to expectations. Eventually, she realized she had to live according to her own truth. This shift allowed fans to see a more authentic version of Marie Osmond. She became more open about the challenges she had faced and the lessons she learned from them. Instead of hiding difficult moments, she used them as opportunities to connect with others who were facing their own struggles. And that honesty changed her relationship with her audience. People no longer admired Marie only because she was talented. They admired her because she was human. One of the most powerful aspects of Marie's later career was her ability to turn personal pain into something meaningful. She understood that many people watching her had experienced their own forms of loss, disappointment, and uncertainty. By sharing her story, she reminded them that difficult chapters do not have to define the entire book. But rebuilding herself was not always easy. The entertainment world is constantly changing, and staying relevant requires more than talent. It requires adaptation, patience, and the willingness to accept that life moves into different seasons. Marie experienced these changes firsthand. The young girl who once stood on stage singing Paper Roses was now a woman with decades of experience, wisdom, and perspective. The industry that once measured her by youth and popularity had changed, but Marie had something that could not be replaced: a lifetime of experiences that shaped who she became. Her journey also showed another important truth about aging in Hollywood. Many entertainers struggle with the pressure of being remembered only for their younger years. But Marie embraced the different stages of her life. Instead of trying to recreate the past, she focused on appreciating the present. She was not the same person she had been decades earlier. And that was not something to hide. It was something to celebrate. Marie's ability to continue evolving became one of her greatest strengths. She showed that reinvention is not about becoming someone new. It is about accepting every version of yourself, including the painful chapters that helped shape you. But despite all the changes, one thing remained constant. Marie Osmond still carried the memories of everything she had lost. The people who changed her, the moments that tested her, the experiences that forced her to grow. Those memories were not erased by success or time. They became part of her story. And as Marie entered her 60s, she began showing the world that a person's greatest chapter does not always come during their years of fame. Sometimes it comes after the storms. Sometimes it comes when someone finally stops trying to prove they are strong and simply allows themselves to be honest. But there was still one final question surrounding Marie Osmond's incredible journey. After everything she had survived, everything she had lost, and everything she had rebuilt, what does the woman behind the famous smile truly believe about her life today? And what hidden lesson did decades of heartbreak finally teach her? At 66 years old, Marie Osmond's life looks very different from the one the world first witnessed decades ago. The young girl who once stood on stage as a teenage sensation has become a woman defined not only by her accomplishments, but by the experiences that shaped her. Her story is no longer just about fame, music, or entertainment. It is about survival. It is about resilience. And it is about understanding that a person's greatest battles are often the ones nobody sees. When audiences first discovered Marie, they saw a young performer with incredible talent and endless potential. Over the years, that image evolved. She became a television star, a successful entertainer, a businesswoman, and a mother. But the most important transformation was not professional. It was personal. Marie Osmond learned that life cannot always be controlled, no matter how successful someone becomes. Fame can open doors, but it cannot prevent heartbreak. Money can provide comfort, but it cannot remove emotional pain. Recognition can create opportunities, but it cannot answer the deepest questions about happiness and purpose. Those lessons came through experiences that changed her forever. As she entered a new stage of life, Marie began focusing less on what she had lost and more on what she had gained. She became more interested in gratitude, family connections, and using her experiences to help others. This perspective was not created by an easy life. It was created by surviving a difficult one. Marie's willingness to discuss painful moments helped many fans see her in a completely different way. The woman they had watched performing for decades was not someone who had avoided hardship. She was someone who had faced it directly, and that made her story more powerful. One of the biggest misconceptions about celebrities is that success creates a perfect life. But Marie's journey proves that even people who seem to have everything can experience moments of deep uncertainty. The difference is what they choose to do afterward. For Marie, moving forward meant accepting that some wounds never fully disappear. Certain memories remain painful, and some losses permanently change a person. But she also learned that grief and happiness can exist at the same time. A person can miss someone deeply and still find reasons to smile. A person can experience heartbreak and still discover hope. A person can lose something important and still create something meaningful. That message became a major part of Marie's legacy. Throughout her career, she continued connecting with audiences because people recognized something genuine about her. She was not simply a performer delivering entertainment. She was someone sharing a piece of her own journey. At 66, Marie Osmond represents something many people can relate to: the reality of change. Everyone reaches moments where life looks different than expected. Dreams change. Relationships change. People change. But change does not always mean losing yourself. Sometimes it means finally understanding yourself. Marie's life has been filled with dramatic highs and painful lows. She experienced the excitement of becoming famous at a young age and the heartbreak of facing moments no parent wants to experience. She discovered success and disappointment, celebration and grief. Yet through all of it, she continued moving forward. That may be the most important part of her story. Not that she never struggled. Not that she always knew what to do. But that she continued searching for strength even during moments when strength felt impossible. And perhaps that is why so many people continue to connect with Marie Osmond after all these years. Because beneath the celebrity, beneath the career achievements, and beneath the public image is a story that feels deeply human. A story about someone who laughed, cried, lost, learned, and continued. But even after understanding the challenges Marie faced, there is still one final piece of the puzzle. Because the biggest lesson of her life was not found in the moments when everything went wrong. It was found in what she chose to do after those moments. And the final chapter of Marie Osmond's journey reveals the hidden strength behind the smile that millions of people have known for more than 5 decades. At 66 years old, Marie Osmond's life looks very different from the one the world first witnessed decades ago. The young girl who once stood on stage as a teenage sensation has become a woman defined not only by her accomplishments, but by the experiences that shaped her. Her story is no longer just about fame, music, or entertainment. It is about survival. It is about resilience. And it is about understanding that a person's greatest battles are often the ones nobody sees. When audiences first discovered Marie, they saw a young performer with incredible talent and endless potential. Over the years, that image evolved. She became a television star, a successful entertainer, a businesswoman, and a mother. But the most important transformation was not professional. It was personal. Marie Osmond learned that life cannot always be controlled, no matter how successful someone becomes. Fame can open doors, but it cannot prevent heartbreak. Money can provide comfort, but it cannot remove emotional pain. Recognition can create opportunities, but it cannot answer the deepest questions about happiness and purpose. Those lessons came through experiences that changed her forever. As she entered a new stage of life, Marie began focusing less on what she had lost and more on what she had gained. She became more interested in gratitude, family connections, and using her experiences to help others. This perspective was not created by an easy life. It was created by surviving a difficult one. Marie's willingness to discuss painful moments helped many fans see her in a completely different way. The woman they had watched performing for decades was not someone who had avoided hardship. She was someone who had faced it directly, and that made her story more powerful. One of the biggest misconceptions about celebrities is that success creates a perfect life. But Marie's journey proves that even people who seem to have everything can experience moments of deep uncertainty. The difference is what they choose to do afterward. For Marie, moving forward meant accepting that some wounds never fully disappear. Certain memories remain painful, and some losses permanently change a person. But she also learned that grief and happiness can exist at the same time. A person can miss someone deeply and still find reasons to smile. A person can experience heartbreak and still discover hope. A person can lose something important and still create something meaningful. That message became a major part of Marie's legacy. Throughout her career, she continued connecting with audiences because people recognized something genuine about her. She was not simply a performer delivering entertainment. She was someone sharing a piece of her own journey. At 66, Marie Osmond represents something many people can relate to: the reality of change. Everyone reaches moments where life looks different than expected. Dreams change. Relationships change. People change. But change does not always mean losing yourself. Sometimes it means finally understanding yourself. Marie's life has been filled with dramatic highs and painful lows. She experienced the excitement of becoming famous at a young age and the heartbreak of facing moments no parent wants to experience. She discovered success and disappointment, celebration and grief. Yet through all of it, she continued moving forward. That may be the most important part of her story. Not that she never struggled. Not that she always knew what to do. But that she continued searching for strength even during moments when strength felt impossible. And perhaps that is why so many people continue to connect with Marie Osmond after all these years. Because beneath the celebrity, beneath the career achievements, and beneath the public image is a story that feels deeply human. A story about someone who laughed, cried, lost, learned, and continued. But even after understanding the challenges Marie faced, there is still one final piece of the puzzle. Because the biggest lesson of her life was not found in the moments when everything went wrong. It was found in what she chose to do after those moments. And the final chapter of Marie Osmond's journey reveals the hidden strength behind the smile that millions of people have known for more than 5 decades. For more than 5 decades, the world has known Marie Osmond as a performer who could light up a stage. Her voice, her personality, and her unmistakable smile became symbols of positivity and entertainment. But when the story of her life is examined beyond the spotlight, something much deeper appears. Marie Osmond's greatest achievement was never simply becoming famous. It was learning how to keep going when fame could not protect her. Her journey began with a dream that most people could only imagine. She became a star as a teenager, entered a world of incredible success, and built a career that lasted across multiple generations. But along the way, she discovered that success does not make someone immune to pain. In fact, sometimes the people who appear to have the most are the ones carrying struggles that nobody knows about. Marie's story is filled with contradictions. She was celebrated by millions, yet she experienced moments of private sadness. She brought happiness to audiences, yet she faced personal heartbreak. She represented strength, yet she also had moments where she needed strength herself. And that is what makes her story so relatable. Because behind every public figure is a person dealing with the same emotions everyone experiences: love, fear, uncertainty, grief, and hope. One of the most powerful parts of Marie's journey is the way she transformed pain into purpose. Instead of allowing difficult experiences to define her only through sadness, she used them to become more compassionate and understanding. She learned that vulnerability was not weakness. It was honesty. For years, entertainers were often expected to hide their struggles. The audience wanted the perfect performance, the perfect smile, and the perfect image. But Marie's willingness to reveal the difficult parts of her story showed fans that even someone admired by millions can face moments of darkness. And sometimes, Sharing those moments can help others feel less alone. The tragedy in Marie Osmond's story is not that she experienced hardship. The tragedy would have been allowing that hardship to take away everything else. But she refused to let that happen. She continued creating. She continued performing. She continued supporting her family and connecting with people who found inspiration in her journey. The woman who once became famous for making people smile eventually became known for something even more meaningful, showing people how to survive when life stops being easy. At 66, Marie Osmond's legacy is not only about the songs she recorded or the television moments people remember. It is about resilience. It is about finding a way forward after devastating moments. It is about understanding that healing does not mean forgetting the past. It means learning how to carry it. Her life reminds us that everyone has chapters that others never see. Some struggles happen away from cameras. Some battles happen quietly. Some pain is carried behind a smile that the world assumes is effortless. But those hidden chapters often create the strongest people. Marie Osmond's story is ultimately not just a story about fame. It is a story about being human. A young girl entered the entertainment world hoping to make people happy. Decades later, after experiencing both extraordinary success and unimaginable heartbreak, she gave audiences something even more valuable. She gave them honesty. She showed that life can break your heart and still leave room for love. That loss can exist alongside gratitude. And that even after the most painful moments, a person can still find a reason to move forward. The world may always remember Marie Osmond as the smiling performer who captured America's heart. But those who truly understand her journey know there is much more behind that smile. There is a woman who endured, a mother who loved deeply, a performer who never stopped creating, and a person who discovered that the greatest strength does not come from pretending life is perfect. It comes from facing the imperfect moments and choosing to keep going anyway.